And guys, in this next news story, 9 people involved in the false imprisonment, blackmail, and torture of 3 men at a garage on South Tyneside have been jailed. The group lured their victims to a lockup in South Shields on 18th of September last year before holding them prisoners. The victims were subjected to severe violence, including the use of a blowtorch and a spade, as the offenders demanded significant amounts of money to secure their release. They each required hospital treatment for their injuries. Raids were carried out across the northeast in the weeks that followed, with 9 arrests made and 7 defendants pleaded guilty to 2 counts of false imprisonment and 1 count of blackmail when appearing at Newcastle Crown Court, while 2 other suspects admitted a fray in June. The offenders have been sentenced throughout September. So they are Craig Seals, who's got 10 years and 4 months. You've got Daniel Lake, he's got 11 years and 8 months. Samantha Olsen, who's got 8.5 years. Jonathan Ferguson, got 8.5 years. Ian Sutherland, got 9 years and 6 months. Cassim Thompson, got 9 years. Grant McLean, got 9 years and 3 months. Jonathan Mason, got 15 months. And Liam Price also got 15 months. Northumbria Police Detective Inspector Mark Atherton said this was a terrifying ordeal, for the 3 victims were subjected to a significant levels of violence. It is clear the origins to this offence lie in organised criminal activity linked to drug dealing, and these offenders set about to punish and intimidate the victims that day. No matter what was behind the dispute, the violence faced by the victims that day was sustained and significant. Violence of any kind will never be tolerated, and a huge amount of work from a team of specialist detectives working closely with CPS, North East Complex Casework Units, culminating in the conviction of 9 violent offenders. I'd also like to commend the outstanding bravery that the victims have shown throughout the criminal justice process. That as part of Operation Centre and our dedicated activity to tackle serious and organised crime, we will continue to consider every tactic at our disposal to dismantle criminal networks and bring all of the offenders to justice. So the court heard that the 3 men were lured to a garage which was owned by Seals, where they were beaten amid a dispute over drugs. Prosecutor Richard Wright Casey said the violence included punches and kicks, and a shovel was used to hit them, and a blowtorch was also used while corrosive substances were poured on them. The court heard one of the victims tried to convince the group he had a lot of money at home and he could get it, but the defendants refused to let him leave, thought he was blagging, and they battered him even more. The sentencing judge, Amanda Rippon, said the 3 victims were abused and tortured inside a garage by the gang, and one of the victims was said to have felt helpless and that those involved terrified him. In a statement, he said he thought he was going to die, and during the ordeal, he said he is a Muslim and he read the Kalima in his head because he thought he was going to die, and this is usually a prayer recited before death. The victim was eventually released and he left the Northeast with his family, never to return again. The judge said that there was no justification for the injuries the victim sustained and that each defendant was culpable for the next. She added some played important parts, with Seals, the garage owner, providing the all-important premises where this could take place. Absolute madness, guys. One of the other victims spoke, and he basically said he was targeted simply because his brother allegedly owed money. He said, "I will never forget what I walked into. These guys were big lads, much bigger than me, and they looked well dodgy. The garage was horrible, it stunk, and it was very dirty. I was thinking it's the kind of place people get tortured in, something like you see in one of those Hollywood movies. I could see a shovel and Bunsen burner set out. I could see my little brother, he was already hurt and crying, and I knew I was going to get hurt too. I felt helpless seeing him look like this. I won't forget the look of fear on his face. It is at that moment I thought we were going to die." He then said that he heard that his brother was saying a Muslim prayer, which he said was usually said before dead, and he was actually saying it himself in his head. He said, "I thought we were at the end of life. I was physically shaking in fear. I find it difficult to even think back to this time in the garage." He said he was allowed to leave for a time and try to find the money, but he knew that there was none he could get. And when he got back to the garage, he thought they would be killed. However, they were given 2 days to find £20,000 and allowed to leave. And he said, "I feel lucky to be alive." And guys, in this next news story, a gifted pianist stabbed her boyfriend in the groin, narrowly missing his after he refused to have sex with her. Marlena Mejekna Shibashi, who's 38 years old, waited until her boyfriend had fallen asleep and then poured bleach on his face. Then, while he was confused and fumbling for his clothes in the dark, she stabbed him in the groin, narrowly missing his knob. Newcastle Crown Court heard. Couple had been in a stormy on and off relationship for several years, starting in 2011. The music teacher said, "I wanted to harm his knob but missed." The other day, she was sentenced to 7 years in prison after she pleaded guilty to wounding a boyfriend with intent to cause GBH. Although they didn't live together at the time of the attack, they sometimes met up at a flat for some casual fun. On occasion, they played out fantasies, and Shibashi would dress up and call her fella daddy. On the day of the attack in April last year, her fella had gone round to her home after family members contacted him concerned about her. The pair did it, but when she failed her, he left as he had some chores to carry out. To return a little later, and the couple watched the movie together before the man turned over to go to sleep. The court heard Shibashi tried to initiate some fun time with him by fondling him under the bed covers, but he told her, "Please don't, please stop." He then went to sleep, but was abruptly woken when he felt liquid being poured onto his left cheek. He told the court, "My next recollection was some liquid being poured over the left side of my face. When I inhaled, I realized it was bleach. It went into my nose and ear. I sat up straight away, and that's when she threw the remainder of the contents of the glass into my face." The victim said he tried to use his torch to find his clothing and managed to just about get his socks on. He said, blinded by the bleach, he could also feel a warm liquid running down his leg, and he said, "My initial thought were that I'd wet myself out of fear about what was happening. It was only when I looked down that I could work out that it was blood from a wound. I then looked at her, and I could see her face absolutely full of rage, and she was holding a knife, and she was coming towards me with the knife." Brandishing the knife, the piano teacher again went on the attack as he desperately tried to escape, the court heard. The victim began screaming for help, and in a panic, he grabbed a cardboard box and used it as a shield and managed to push her off the bed before fleeing the flat. He said, "I was able to leap onto the bed, run across the bed, unlock the door, and then her landlord was right outside." Police discovered the man lying naked and covered in blood in the hallway of the rented property. He was covered in bleach and had a stab wound on his right inner thigh, and he was rushed to hospital where he received medical treatments for his injuries. As Shibashi was being arrested by police, she asked officers, "Do you know if it was his knob or not?" And in court, she said, "I wanted to harm it, but because he moved, I ended up missing and I got his thigh instead." She told the court, "I was massively drunk and I was high. I grabbed the kitchen knife and bleach and poured the bleach into a glass, and I poured it onto his closed eyes." The piano teacher told the court she had been the victim of a SA abuse and had acted in self-defense, but the court found no evidence and found her to be coercive in controlling her boyfriend. Judge Christine Lane KC told the pianist, "I find you to be a liar and a very manipulative person who hides behind the stories of serious allegations as an excuse to lash out on people both mentally and physically. She's been sentenced to 7 years in prison and 4 years on an extended license to protect the public. She's also imposed an indefinite restraining order forbidding her from contacting her boyfriend ever again." Absolute madness, guys. It's your boy GT. Keep it locked, keep it real.